I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring your ass.
These guys survived the David Kahn era of Timberwolves basketball and live to tell about it. It's Flagrant Howls.
And he's back after a summer hiatus from Flagrant Howls. Kyle Theige making his triumphant return to the show here with a brand new colored hat. You're like a cartoon character that wears the same clothes, but
Yeah,
here
I mean,
you are back with a new hat,
it's
new
like
look.
My wardrobe is just Steve Jobs. It's like black shirts can I get, mixing a gray one every now and then. But the less I have to think about putting clothes on, especially when I work from home, the better. But yeah, shout out to, the Kilauea Surf and Skate Shop because they sent me a bunch of hats. So thought I'd rep them. But it feels good to be back. It feels good to be back on the show. I know we took a little month off. I appreciate you giving me some time, kind of behind baseball a little bit. But it's my 7th year doing this. And I kind of always like to, once the season's done, think if I want to do it again. And this year was the closest I've ever gotten, I think, to being like, maybe I'm just done. But you've been pretty cool about kind of a plan for this next season, and Dane's been pretty cool as well. So more pods coming up this next season, hopefully less than I did last year. I think this show has grown to be more than just any voice, you or me. I've loved having Judd's opinion on it because I think I get siloed sometimes with my thoughts on the Wolves. I think Artis Woods is an up-and-comer. So Flagrant Howls is back. Maybe a little less me, but that's probably good for the masses. But you and I will be pumping out an episode here every week, and Grady and Jim and all our friends will be on too. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we're going to try and find. And by the way, like, doors always open for more Kyle Theige. So even, maybe you pace yourself early on. And
I'm a playoff guy now. Just save myself for the
load
playoffs.
management, dude. Load management.
I'm Kawhi.
And then we can ramp up the minutes. Although with Kawhi, he doesn't ramp up the minutes in the postseason. He just kind of sits out those games too. But where do you want to start here, man? Since we last podcasted, free agency has started. The Timberwolves made a baller move to get Rob Dillingham with the 8th overall pick, and then Terrence Shannon Jr. There's Lauri Markkanen steam now from 2 different publications, Hoops Hype and Yahoo. So I don't know. You spin the wheel and pick a topic that you are passionate about right now.
Well, I just had this. You're going to love this stat. We haven't done a lot of stat porn in a while, and we were mentioning Kawhi Leonard's name. So this is courtesy of Tom Haberstroh. I guess we can file it into the Western Conference discussion. Paul George, who just left the LA Clippers to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard played 26 playoff games together in 5 seasons for the Clippers. Ant and Carl have played 27. And then another crazy thing, Leonard and George, when they teamed up in the summer of 2019, Edwards was 5 months away from making his debut. So when we think about that kind of, I say that because also, too, we're just going to go in 1,000 directions today, but it is July 2nd. We are 2 years and a day removed from the Rudy Gobert trade, which at the time was called the worst trade in NBA history. And I think since then, we've literally seen at least 2 trades that were worse. I think the Kevin Durant trade was more, and they've gotten less production. Kevin Durant's probably going to go down, I don't think this is a debate, as a way better player than Rudy. They'll both be Hall of Famers, but we can't talk about rings culture and what have you done for me lately and then also not be like, hey, the Suns have done nothing with Durant there. So that was a big miss so far. And then the Mikal Bridges trade too. I mean, they gave up a ton to get a guy who's never made an all-star team. I don't think he's ever been, I think he's maybe made all defense, but not as good as Rudy Gobert. So
they paid the never misses a game tax for Tom Thibodeau, I think.
Yeah,
for
that's
Bridges,
true.
Right?
That's true. But with the Rudy stuff, I mean, to get Paul George, obviously they also got Kawhi back in 19, but they gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is a top 5 player in the league, and then a bunch of picks, and they're still paying the Clippers are paying the Thunder picks. So just another reminder sometimes that maybe you don't need to believe everything you see on the internet, but the Rudy Gobert trade isn't even the worst trade of the last 2 years, let alone the worst trade in NBA history. And that's the only team that's actually made a run in the playoffs. So, happy 2-year anniversary to when I said I was going to move to Mexico.
Yeah, so many things here. I think going back to that Gobert trade and then to tie it kind of full circle into the Lauri Markkanen rumors that that may or may not lead to anything. The one thing we know for sure in 2 years is we never actually know what Tim Connelly's up to. More than any POBO in the entire league, he just operates in the shadows as a POBO ninja. He's not like using Shams or Woj for leverage or to float things. All of a sudden you wake up and like, oh, the Wolves traded for Gobert, or oh man, they traded for Mike Conley, or whoa, they just moved up to the 8th overall pick for Dillingham.
Yeah.
Just completely out of nowhere. And so that's what I'm curious to see is, he's done a couple interviews. In fact, I think he was on the flagship radio station KFXN the other day, and he was telling the afternoon host that, we want to keep our core 7 guys together that we have right now. Does he really mean it? Or is he looking to maybe add another piece through some means that we aren't thinking about? I guess I'll start with this question to you. Knowing that the Nuggets have gotten a little bit worse, the Clippers have gotten a little bit worse, the Warriors, we'll see. I think Mavericks have gotten better. Pelicans have gotten better. I think Oklahoma City's gotten better. So there's some teams that have gotten better, some teams have gotten worse. If the Wolves bring back the core group and they just add Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr., and maybe they go get, I kind of hope they get Joe Ingles. It'd be kind of fun to watch a 37-year-old Joe Ingles out there just launching old man threes. But they add like a veteran wing player, and then Anthony Edwards, they bank on him getting another year better, playoff experience, Olympic experience. I mean, is there another jump without a huge move in 2024-25, do you think?
Absolutely. And I've enjoyed just sitting back the last couple of weeks, and I don't know. This is people that listen to me the last 7 years or how I cover sports or this team. I'm usually do it pretty positively. I'm just not a big criticism guy, but I think the most criticism I've ever dished out is at like a guy like Adam Silver. I actually think I've never been more excited for the Timberwolves than I am about this current roster, while simultaneously never being more down on my favorite league. I just think like the way, I was trying to think of an analogy for this, but what's going on now with this second apron and the CBA and all this stuff, it's ruining the NBA. In terms of like, if Roger Goodell in the NFL was like, hey, we're going to ban fantasy football. Like a lot of people just tune in on Sundays and Thursdays and Mondays just to see which of their guys could score a touchdown or get 50 yards. That's like why a segment of people watch football. A large segment, especially a younger audience, just loves this time of year in the NBA. And I've seen so many people using the trade machine or sending out these ideas. And I'm just an efficiency guy, but like, what a waste of your time, because none of it's possible. Like, not even like, I don't know if they would accept that. It's illegal. It's like
a lot of the moves are, yeah.
The market and stuff, it's like, to your earlier point, the Dillingham trade, and we should talk about him and Terrence Shannon Jr., that came out of nowhere, and that's how Tim Connelly operates. The fact that this kind of leaked out, to me, maybe says more that it was Utah telling a reporter, a Jake Fisher or something, that here are the teams that have inquired about Markkanen.
Drive the value up.
And I'm sure, Tim Connelly's the GOAT and Matt Lloyd and Sasha. Someone probably just called the Jazz and was like, oh, you have this all-star player available, low contract. Yeah, someone has to extend him, but what would it take? And that's all it takes to get into the media circle of, the Wolves are interested in Markkanen, because they have nothing to give. It would have to be like a Karl-Anthony Towns. Why would the Jazz want that when they could go get like 5 first-round picks for Markkanen? So maybe then it's like a 3-way. And I'll just be honest with you, I have no idea how 3-ways work in the NBA, especially in this new second apron. So it's just, all that stuff is kind of a waste to me. And then I come back to the NBA, and it's tougher to talk about these things because the transactions are impossible to predict, and you can't add salary, and your pick gets moved to the back end. So I'm just rambling because I'm so excited to see your face again. But I'm so excited for the Wolves, but I am just really down on the league because I have a friend that works in the Blazers front office. I've said it before. And everyone you talk to is just like, I have no idea how we actually got this thing through. Like how the Players Association was essentially like, we'll swap getting screwed over so we can get a cut of gambling money and like smoke weed. And again, I get it, but
it's under the guise of trying to maintain a more competitive league, because the league is run by dynasties over the years and super teams. But what's funny is, in the years leading up to the second apron being introduced, we've had no repeat champions in like 6 years. The league has actually been much more wide open, and maybe that's in preparation for second apron stuff. But, so just like to over explain it for Wolves fans, some of the points you're making, you think, well, what if they could do a sign and trade for this guy over here, right? Like Paul George or this. Like, well, they literally legally cannot execute a sign and they are not allowed to execute a sign and trade if it results in them remaining in the apron that they're in. They can't cobble together salaries. This wouldn't matter for Markkanen because he only makes $18 million. But let's say there was another player out there that you wanted to, add a $40 million player, and not that you would do this, and you wanted to package like Jaden and Nas Reed together, right? Which again, like I would not advocate that, but you legally could not cobble together multiple contracts for one contract because you're in the second apron. You can't use your taxpayer mid-level exception, which would be like a $5 million block to sign a player if you're in the second apron. So like the only way the Wolves can add to their team, and this is going back to the Dillingham conversation, you go in, you take your lumps against the Mavericks. It's a great season.
Yeah.
How do you get to the next level? And I think all of us agreed, boy, it'd be really nice to have the Wolves have defense down. They've got size. They've got some good three-point shooters, but it'd really be nice to have a running mate next to Ant, another initiator, another guard who can ball handle and keep Karl Anthony Towns ideally. So you'd have Ant, player B, and then Karl Anthony Towns. Well, the only ways to acquire that player are through a trade, but you can't cobble together contracts to find that player, nor do you want to trade Cat. So like a trade is unrealistic. The draft, which going into the draft, 27th overall pick, are you really going to find that guy with the 27th pick? Baller move to trade a 12-year-old, a 2030 draft pick to get Dillingham. And then the third avenue to get a player would be just like the used DVD bin, digging through like the 35-year-old, Jay Crowders. And I was kind of hoping Nicholas Batum would be an option if Kyle Anderson was gone, but he went back to the Clippers. So like there's not that many ways with these parameters and with where the Wolves are at financially to make your team better. But I think they did, man. Like if Dillingham comes in, and Doogie's brought up like Bowens Highland's rookie year. He was second team all rookie, 10, 11 points a game. I've seen you float like Brandon Jennings go back to the Bucks days. But like if that dude can come in and just be a microwave scorer right away, it's a great short-term jolt, but it's also a long-term partnership with Anthony Edwards for the next 5 years too. So I don't know. I like the way they're maneuvering despite the shackles of the second apron.
And as front offices, like, for example, we know this, but Dane Moore is the best at the CBA stuff, and he doesn't quite get it yet. And
he's like, I'm going to go on vacation for a couple days.
Yeah, so Dane's like, I'm going to go to Montana. Stop texting me, Kyle. So, but as front offices continue to digest this, and I'll get back to the Dillingham thing, but my last thing on the Clippers, for example, is that in all sports, you've always heard, this is just cliche, but can't lose an asset for nothing. That's just basic, like 101 basketball, football, baseball, whatever. What the Clippers are learning or think they've learned, and they have a really good front office, good cap guys there, is that it was better for them to just lose Paul George for nothing and to not go get like young players and salary from the Warriors, even though they would have gotten some good picks. They were just like, honestly, just removing that from our books is a good deal. And that is something that the Wolves, going back to how they've improved via the draft, you'll start to find some small loopholes. I think that's what they did by just trading, a 12-year-old, as you say, for Rob Dillingham. I mean, that trade in of itself was so perfect because it addressed so many needs, but it also didn't really hurt. I mean, Tim Connelly, is he going to be here? Who's going to be here in 2031? Will you and I be here? So that was a really smart move, but it also kind of made me think long-term next year or whatever, if this team does pay the tax and this new ownership thing. I have so many thoughts in my head. I mean, is that what's going to happen with like a Karl or a Rudy? Are you just going to have to trade them somewhere? Or, I mean, they lost Paul George, they didn't trade him, but are you just going to have to lose a guy for very little just because you can't keep paying? I mean, I know Doogie said this before, and Glenn Taylor deserves credit. Like, they have paid the tax before. I think I found this on Forbes, but they've paid the tax, Phil, 4 seasons, I believe, in the history of this franchise, for a total of $25 million.
Yeah, they've not been traditionally have not been a big-time tax-paying team.
So it's, this one is going to be 3-4 times what they've paid in all the first 35 seasons combined. So, and then do you want to get into the repeater tax of that? So, yeah, back to the draft, which is kind of when unofficially this next NBA season started. I've never been less excited for a draft just because it's like, okay, bad draft, pick 27, whatever. How they maneuvered that and to get the Spurs to kind of agree. I get that the Spurs are loading up on assets for when Wemby is 27, and probably the best player in the league at that point. But I didn't really see anyone that thought the Spurs came out of that well. And if you're the Wolves and you can say, we can just move stuff that no one in this organization, from literally the owner all the way down to the players, like none of us might be here 7 years from now, and we can go get a guy that addresses, he can put pressure on the rim, he can shoot. I mean, he already has, this is non-negotiable, he has the second best handle on the roster, and he's 19 years old.
That's not like a long list of ball handlers.
Nope.
But you're right.
I think Naz Reid was probably the second best handle on the team prior to getting Rob Dillingham. So, and then Terrence Shannon Jr. too, another guy that can put pressure on the rim, was fourth, I think, in college last year, getting to the line for free throw attempts. So it sounds homerish, and I respect that, but I really thought that they just crushed the draft because, have the Thunder gotten better? For sure. Are there a couple other teams in the West that have gotten better? Yeah. I think we lazily sometimes just go, oh my God, the West is so much better again. It's like the Warriors have gotten terrible. Like they're really, really, unless they make a move here, like
if they swap Clay for Markkanen, I think it'd be a nice, okay, you're getting younger and you're getting bigger, but like that's not a guarantee to happen.
They've never shown any intention of wanting to give up all their future. Like that's why they held on to Wiseman and Moody and Kuminga. So if they don't make a move, like they got worse. The Clippers got worse. The Nuggets have started to get really flamed for back-to-back years after winning a title on two moves that were really good moves by Kelvin Booth. They just lost Brown, and now they lost KCP for nothing. So I kind of push back on this whole the West just keeps getting bigger or better and better. It's like, yeah, I think Dallas made some good moves. Obviously, the Thunder are going to be the favorites out of the West as we enter next season. But I think the Wolves, by getting two rookies, one's more plug and play, Terrence Shannon Jr., he's older than Jaden, I think, already. He's going to come in and give you some minutes kind of at that 3 spot. But, 10 minutes before we hit record, Monty Morris assigned a minimum deal with the Suns, so
that's a nice pickup by the Suns, by the way.
Love it. I think Monty Morris was probably hurt, a little out of shape all season last year.
Yeah,
was an emergency kind of option for Finch that he just didn't really trust. But with him gone now, it is like Rob Dillingham backup point guard. So I'm sure they'll find a minimum contract to bring in to have some insurance. They have to figure out the Kyle Anderson thing. That's probably the last kind of seismic move here if they don't really, according to Tim Connelly, like you said, they don't want to break up their rotation guys of 7 guys. They don't want to put Carl in a trade. So, yeah, I came away with that draft, man, with such low expectations. So maybe that's why I'm amped. But not only did you make your team better, and Rob Dillingham will have some nights, right? That 1 for 8 stinker, 4 turnovers. You're like, oh my God, the 19-year-old kid might have lost him the game. But
yeah,
he's also now a foundational piece. So it's not like they spent $5 million to go out and get, a Chris Dunn, who's kind of resurrected his career, would be a nice little point guard behind Mike, but there's not a lot of future there. Whatever happens with this second apron and these picks that they no longer have and the pick swaps and the 12-year-olds that will get drafted by the Spurs in the 2030s, you wake up tomorrow and you have a core of Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and now Rob Dillingham, and they're all under 25.
That's the crazy thing.
That's pretty crazy to do, and that's why I don't think we can talk about them like we talk about other teams, because Dallas has older guys. I mean, Mike and Rudy are old, but this team is... I get nervous about the 2 timelines, especially when we talk about the Warriors, because that blew up in their face and it kind of cratered. But the Wolves' 2 timelines is like they're relying on older guys like Carl and Rudy that are helping them win now, but their best players that project to be the best players, and Naz, Jaden, are all under 25. So it's a pretty interesting time, and the way that they navigated that draft, you rarely see a Minnesota team get A's in their draft grades on any publication whatsoever, and it was straight A's across the board, 4.0.
Yeah. It's you talk about timelines, like the Spurs are trying to, in some ways, you bring on Chris Paul to expedite the timeline, not to like win a championship with a 40-year-old Chris Paul, but to just inject some leadership and winning and whatever. And But with a 19 turning 20-year-old Wemby, you're probably looking at 5 years away from actually contending for a championship. I think the Wolves are sort of playing that line perfectly, in that I don't think you're in a position to trade young assets for like the final piece to the puzzle yet. So just see how much Anthony Edwards can grow. There's another leap for Jaden McDaniels, I believe, and we can do episodes about that this summer. But I think you're going to get to a point where there's like $100 million worth of Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns that you have to figure out sort of what to do with. I mean, Rudy can be out of his contract after this upcoming season. So that's a big decision. Does he opt out? Do you look to extend him at some point, even this summer? He's in his early 30s. Was it just like a fun 3-year run and it elevated you to playoff status and they got Anthony Edwards into some bigger games? I don't think they want to live in the second apron forever. So I don't know that they're going to just replace $100 million one for one. But like the way they're structured right now is top 5 team in the NBA. But to your point, the way that the ages align on their roster, like they're set up for whatever the iteration is after Kat and Rudy either age out or their contracts are no longer viable. So I don't mind them sort of playing both timelines right now. At some point, you'll probably have to just go all in some way. People thought they were all in 2 years ago, but that was always a fallacy, and we poked that left and right. So I'm okay with them sort of riding 2 timelines, I guess, right now.
And the difference between this 2 timelines and what Golden State did, or like let's use the Lakers, for example, right? They haven't really done much in the offseason, other than a couple picks, but they would be trying to use picks in the 2030s paired with some salary to go out and get more of a proven guy now. But that proven guy's probably like 27, 28 in his 30s, like a Zach LaVine or something. Whereas I don't know the last time, and I was actually looking this up this morning, the last time a conference finals team, so a Final Four team, a month later added a lottery pick. So what the Wolves are doing is they didn't use the 2031 pick, which became available to them on draft night that they could, you get 7 years out. They didn't use that to go and get, I don't know, like Mikal Bridges is a terrible name because they don't have all those assets, but they didn't go get like a more proven guy now that kind of bumps up the window, but
like
also,
a Drew Holiday or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. So they actually went and got a guy who probably has a little lower of a ceiling in October because, again, Rob Dillingham is 19 years old.
Yeah.
He can't drink at Summer League next summer. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but he also can be groomed and kind of sit behind Mike, and he also addresses things that this team just needed in the short term, like scoring and dribbling, basic things. But also long term, if he does kind of hit and he's as good as a lot of the draft analysts thought, you added a lottery pick to a team that, back to your comment and the 2 years ago, you added a lottery foundational piece to a team that was thought to be all in. Like you just somehow were all in at the table, right, Phil? And someone just gave you more chips. That's pretty cool. And the timeline thing is hard to navigate. 1 timeline, so 2 is really hard. But it just goes back to all of June when I was kind of hiding in the shadows and doing darkness retreats. We'll see what happens with this ownership thing this fall. I mean, arbitration and getting that all settled out. Anthony Edwards is so important and the best player on this franchise. But you can make a case maybe that Tim Connelly is just the most important person in this organization right now. And
that's a fun exercise.
And I think that whatever side of the ownership coin you're on or whoever you want to support or cheer for, I'm cheering for the side that Tim Connelly wants to work for. And that's kind of it. So obviously you want new ownership to pay the tax, and that kind of goes hand in hand. But whoever Tim wants to work for next summer, that's who I want to own the team because he has already done so many things. He inherited some good pieces in Ant and Jaden and Carl and Nas, but he has added so much talent, both short-term and long-term, to this franchise that it's just, I just can't stop smiling. Like, you look around NBA Twitter and stuff, and there's just so many fan bases that are like doing meet and greets and getting together at bars because they traded for Denny Avdia. And it's like, dude, my team went to the finals, Western Conference Finals, and we added like maybe the best player in the draft. So life is good. It's never been like this before for Wolves fans, but I think the future is probably brighter than it's ever been because you have these 2 timelines and you have all these young guys that continue to kind of get better under Chris Finch, who got a well-deserved extension.
We should do that exercise real quick. Tim Connelly, where does he and you could probably do this with like Pat Riley over the years. Where does a really good top 5 or top 3 POBO who makes like $8 million, he makes half the mid-level exception, basically, Tim Connelly. I would put if you put Tim Connelly, all the players,
I'm walking this
Chris
back.
Finch. Let's put Chris Finch in the mix.
Okay.
Let's rank. Yeah. Oh, okay.
You can go first because
I'll go first.
You get all the credit for this show still existing and the growth. So you get the first one. I'll go 2 and 3.
So we'll do so we're doing, I get the first pick, then you get 2, 3, and then I get 3, 4.
Yeah.
Or I get 4, 5.
Yeah, we'll do 3 each.
Okay. I'll take Anthony Edwards, number 1.
That's the right answer. I got a little ahead of my skis. I haven't potted in a while. But he does actually make the ball go in the basket. He is a professional scorer. Let's say that. At 2, I would take Tim Connelly.
Oh, man, that's wild. I don't know if I can fight you on that.
Because, and this is just, again, for the last time, I'm not like a reporter, but getting to talk to him behind the scenes a little bit, especially during that Phoenix run, and being around the team and stuff, it's not just the trades that he made on draft night that were like, oh my God. I mean, Matt Lloyd, after the second round media availability, called him a savage. Like, that's pretty cool when your colleague calls you that. But just his way that he relates with the players, all the other stuff he's doing behind the scenes just to kind of keep this chemistry growing, and how he's balancing having multiple owners on stuff. So I would say it's 2. And then I don't know, man, this is just blue and green tinted glasses, but I'll take Finch at 3.
Wow, you're going leadership. Wow, okay.
Well, I didn't go to college and get my master's and be in debt for 7-8 years to not really believe in management. So I'm going to take Tim Connelly 2 and Chris Finch 3.
Boy, so do I go Mike and Nori here with the next pick? That's the question. I'm going to take a player next. It's so tough, though. I think it's not Cat because of his age. Like I'm like my stance on Cat. I don't think he can be the second guy on a championship team. I mean, Gobert is analytically, was the most impactful player on the team for like the 8 months they played last year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He is the defensive anchor. He's also like 31 or 32. Is it Jaden? I need Jaden to take a step forward, though. Is it Naz Reid? Is it Dillingham?
Michael Grady? No,
is it Jim Pete? Yeah. I think, oh man. I think I'm going Naz Reid.
Okay.
I think there's another level. I think we're going to see it at some point. I think they get him locked into another contract. Because, by the way, his contract can be up
next summer.
Next summer is going to be wild because
next
you've got Gobert and Naz potentially up.
Next summer, I said this to Dane a couple weeks ago. Next summer this was before the draft even. I still believe it now. Next summer is 10 times more important than this summer. And we say this every year, but next summer is quite possibly the biggest moment in the franchise's history just because you have Naz Reid's player option. He can opt out. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is just a straight-up free agent.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert will have one more year on his contract if he hasn't extended. And then again, my guy, if Tim Connelly's opt-out comes about and we don't have a real clarity on the ownership thing or it hasn't gone the way that maybe he prefers, he can just bounce because you mentioned Pat Riley. Tim Connelly's done enough now where he was a household name while in Denver, but what he's done now in Minnesota, if he was on the market, he's going to get $15 million. He's going to get top 5 exec money. So Naz is a good pick, though. I was hoping he would fall to me in the 3rd round. So
I get wraparound here, and then you get the last pick. So do I let Jaden fall into your lap? I'm going to make this hard on you. I'm going to take Jaden right here. So I'll just take the young core under the age of 25, and if you want Dillingham, he's all.
Well, I don't take. You know how I feel about Glenn Taylor. Do I take him?
Oh, you could go like
irrelevant. Just because
you could take Mark and Alex, but you need the courts to agree at some point.
I would take. Yeah, I would. I think I would take Mark
Dude,
and Alex.
the
simply
problem is if
because-
you take Mark and Alex and they lose the court case, you probably lose Tim Connelly too. So now you're left with Finchy holding
I
the
know. It's
bag.
like if I take Mark and Alex, it's kind of like when the Wolves drafted Rubio. They got his rights. Like I would get the rights to Mark and Alex, but then if they decide not to come over or the court say it, then I'm kind of left holding the bag. So
Yeah.
you took Ant, Jaden, and Nas. What I would deem is like the foundation. And I took Tim, Finchy.
I mean, Luka Garza just signed back for 2 years.
I think I will take Rob.
Okay.
Rob Dillingham. He has more music counts already than. By the way, music counts.
What's going on with music counts?
I don't know, but I am just amped for the Kyle Theige music count that's just going to be created after this pod. But I think the Rob Dillingham thing, expectations, no matter how cool he looks and how much, he just was a really flashy, fun player that has a lot of juice and substance. He's going to have a bigger role than we've probably ever seen a rookie have under Finch, excluding that year that he came in midseason for Ryan. But I also just think he's going to have some stinkers. I just think he needs to physically get a little bigger. But if Rob Dillingham can become, because the Mike Conley thing, I've been pretty vocal. I don't want Mike to play more than 60 games next year. I think what he did last year was awesome, set the tone. But what happened to him as the playoffs got longer and longer, he kind of wore down. If they have a running mates of Ant and Rob's on, a pretty good contract, even though he was the 8th overall pick, for the next 5 years, or let's say the next 3 years starting next summer, that's just massive, man, because I think Rob and Ant are going to fit so well next to each other. Ant's probably going to have to be forced to play better defense to kind of cover up for essentially his little brother, and I think Rob's going to be challenged to embrace the defensive culture that this organization has created. But yeah, I will be happy going to sleep tonight thinking that my three draft picks were Tim Connelly, Chris Finch, and Rob Dillingham, and then you have what I would deem as the foundation of the Minnesota Timberwolves in Ant, Jaden, and Nas.
Question for the audience, and you can hit us up you can tweet at our Muse accounts or whatever, Twitter X, YouTube comment section, click that subscribe button if you haven't already on the Score North YouTube channel. But if Kyle started his franchise, just like franchise A, with Tim Connelly, Chris Finch, Rob Dillingham, and a blank canvas, and if I started my franchise with Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid, and Jade McDaniels with zero leadership structure at all whatsoever and blank canvas, who would be better off 3 or 5 years now? Who would win a championship first, I think? I mean, you've got the brains to at least find... I mean, Connelly found Jokic in the second round, so you could trust that your POBO could just go find somebody, a superstar, and I would have to just find a coach that Ant doesn't hate and a front office guy that's not a bumbling idiot. But yeah, long roads ahead for both of us. I think better that all 6 of these guys are just kind of under the same roof right now together.
And that kind of goes back to the Denny Avdia joke. It's just I'm seeing teams that are aging out in the Western Conference that are clinging to man, what if we go get Miles Bridges or something? Or I mean, the Clippers signed Batum and Porter Jr. or Kevin Porter Jr. Who shouldn't be in the league, but they're just kind of grasping at these things, and then I'm just over here. I mean, this is that LeBron meme where he's just in the pool looking up and I can't believe this is my life. It's like my team went to the Western Conference Finals, and then we just get a lottery pick, and all we had to give up was a 7th grader from South Middle School. Sign me up. So life is good. Those 6 people that we just drafted are all very important, but I still hold out that all of this, while promising, and everyone should be buying stock even at a heightened stock price, it's not going to matter if this ownership thing doesn't settle itself out in the best way possible, and that includes having owners that are willing to pay the tax, because this is an expensive team. Even without Monty Morris, they're going to have to find a minimum, and if Kyle leaves, it's just another minimum now, but you're still looking at a $70-80 million tax bill. And on that too, because I haven't really heard this mentioned, Phil, but not only will the Wolves have to pay a big tax this year, so many other teams are going to pay big taxes that it's double trouble, right? Not only are you going to pay $80 million in taxes, but you're not getting that tax payment.
Correct.
And if that tax payment last year, I think for the Wolves was $11 million, this year it's probably going to be 22 or something for all these teams.
Yeah.
So it's that pays a lot of your operating losses. That's how these teams stay at the Four Seasons everywhere they go. So
it's going to be, dude, I have heard reliably that with their tax situation, with the local TV deal off the table right now, like they'd be getting a pretty big chunk of local TV revenue like 3 years ago. And obviously the arena, they're selling more season tickets, but it's not exactly like state-of-the-art revenue arena that they are planning to potentially take near a 9-figure loss as a franchise in 2024-25. So,
which, again, I put my bias out there, but that's why I've leaned towards one ownership group rather than the Glenn Taylor ownership group, because I think the stadium thing, which I don't believe anyone in the city should have to pay a dime for, but if new ownership does have a plan to get a privately funded stadium, you just look around at some other teams that have their own stadium that they own. They kind of prints money by the other events that they can hold on non-game nights. So, I mean, you just brought up stadium and broadcast, and that's one thing, two things I know new ownership has a plan for, whether it's, a soft plan or a firm plan. It's just, now this team is good, and the last thing any Timberwolves fan, specifically Minnesota Timberwolves fans, should worry about is money, because you spent thousands of dollars your whole life to watch a team suck, and now they're good. And I think fans are willing to pay more money, but as ownership, ready to pay for what the front office is doing. So It'll be interesting times.
Okay, two exercises to wrap this episode. We still have like a good 15 solid minutes here. We will get to a random Wolf of the Week. It's been over a month since we've done a random Wolf of the Week. And we'll see if you can continue your hot streak. I've been training, just studying. I've done nothing whatsoever. But I want to play a game with you here. I'm going to throw out. So we're going to sift through the used DVD bin, the veterans minimum bin here. And let's say, I still think there's a chance Kyle Anderson could come back, but let's say that he is going to get something more than the veterans minimum, which it kind of depends on your service time. If you're a 10-plus year vet, it's like $3.5 million. If you're like a 4-year vet, it's more like $2.2 million. So it's like $2 or $3 million for a vet minimum contract to fill out the last roster spot or two. I'm going to give you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to give you 11 names. You have to pick 3 that you like the best. But once you pick, I'm going to throw these names out. Once you pick one, that's a roster spot for you. So like if I give you the first 3 names and you say, yep, then you don't get access to the other 8.
Okay.
All right?
That's fair.
I see this game on TikTok quite a bit. A little TikTok game on Flagrant Holiday. Okay, Jay Crowder. I'll give you a little bio too. Just so he's turns 34 this weekend. Happy birthday, Jay Crowder. 115 career playoff games, a bunch of finals games. Injuries and age have kind of eroded him a bit the last couple seasons, but excellent corner 3-point shooter, 40% from the corners. So Jay Crowder.
I'm out.
You're out?
No interest.
Okay.
No interest.
Joe Ingles, who turns 37 years old, the lefty Australian dad bod. There's a lot of ways to describe Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles, still a 40% 3-point shooter, 46% from the corners. Spent 9 years on those Utah teams, so he's got some Gobert and Conley synergy. Most recently with Orlando and Milwaukee. Joe Ingles.
I would 100% take him as kind of even a downgrade, but still speaks a little French version of Kyle Anderson. I was texting Dane before this, and he did confirm that the Wolves do have 12 guys on the roster, and then Jalen Clark is like a two-way. So as one of my 3 options in this exercise, I think Joe Ingles would be perfect because I did watch a little bit more of him than average when he was down in Orlando, and he was still doing some Joe Ingles stuff, but he is also possibly cooked. But at a minimum,
he might be cooked, yeah.
And also why I'm not a Jay Crowder guy, when you start to look at the depth chart, which is kind of a fun exercise, I know we're not done with free agency, but you start to look at who is going to get minutes, and you kind of break that down. I want minimum contract guys, other than maybe Kyle, but that aren't going to, like if they don't play, they're going to be okay with it. And I think Joe Ingles would probably fit that. I don't think, the Morris brothers or Jay Crowder would fit that mold. So Joe Ingles would fit the culture. He would have experience with Mike and Rudy. And also, too, if he had to play, behind Jaden on the 3, he would be able to contribute in a way that this team needs.
Okay, 36-year-old Danilo Gallinari. So he's 2 years ago, he tore his ACL for the second time, came back last year, played for 3 different teams, 2 of them the Wizards and the Pistons. So not a great year for him. His minutes were down, just like everything was down. So he either needs to settle back in as a 36-year-old and just be with a team that knows what it's doing, or he's cooked. He could be cooked, but he's a 6'10", I would say a sniper at his peak before the second ACL injury. And Tim Connelly had him in Denver back like 7 years ago.
I mean, a lot of these guys are literally just cooked, but if I say yes to him, I'm running out of options, and this is like that game you're talking about where like it's 1 to 10 and you have to put ketchup somewhere on your favorites. Okay, I love that game. I'm going to put Danilo Gallinari kind of down where like brown mustard would go, like 9 out of 10. So I am not interested in him. I'm out just because I don't know how much he has left in his legs.
Sure.
And I don't know if there's any playmaking there in his game left, and that's kind of what I'm looking for is if you lose Kyle, can you find like a rusty Swiss Army knife? And I don't think he is that.
Alec Burks I think he's going to be more than a vet minimum guy, but I mean, we're still sitting here 3 days later. 33 this summer, a guy who played with Gobert in Utah for several years. He missed Mike Conley by a year, but a 40% three-point shooter, a guy that traditionally can get you 10 to 15 points in like 20 minutes on the floor. So I'll throw him out there, Alec Burks.
If you believe that Jalen Clark, drafted in the second round last year, off an Achilles injury, rehabbed it all year, will debut at Summer League. Summer League, by the way, Wolves Summer League team, going to be loaded. If you think he has any chance to make the rotation or get some minutes or just be a guy, then I'm going to say no to the Burks thing. I also just kind of worry he's different. He's better than like a Shake Milton, but I don't know if Finch has ever gotten through. It's never really worked with him to have kind of those combo-y guards like a Burks. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that when you look at the depth charts, like you got Ant obviously at the 2 and then Nikhil behind him and maybe a little Jalen Clark or maybe Terrence Shannon Jr. or whatever, or Dillingham, Mike Conley. I need a real established vet point guard that's just like your classic, Trent Dilfer type quarterback to fill in behind there if Mike were to sustain a pretty big injury, because you don't want Rob Dillingham to be the starting point guard of a former Western Conference team in November. So Burks is good. I probably am an idiot for saying no to him, but I'm going to say no just because I would rather have some more point guard duties to fill out these last 3 spots.
Yeah, and these are admittedly like it's wing heavy because I was thinking Kyle Anderson might be gone. Okay, Dougie McBuckets.
I would be fine saying no. I just
I mean, could he park in the corner for like 2 stints a game? 12 minutes?
Yeah, I just don't know if he does literally anything else.
He doesn't. No.
And again, I do have to say yes to some of these guys. And would he be okay just not playing? I don't know. He's never really done it for me. He has like no swing skills or no other skills whatsoever. And I know we've really focused on Rob being 19, coming out of Kentucky, and how high his ceiling could be. But I've had, despite a kid who has a huge following like on social in Rob Dillingham and coming from Kentucky, I've had 10 times as many people like hit me up about how impressive Terrence Shannon Jr. is and just how much of a dog he is and how the off the court stuff was complete BS and kind of lowered his ability to go higher in the draft. So it was kind of a perfect fall for him to Minnesota. But I mean, if there's a shot to be made from the corner or there's a minute to be given to a kind of a small forward type player, I would rather just spoon feed it to a guy like Terrence Shannon who has other skills. Get to the rim, dribble, defend a little bit over, again, I know we're trying to fill out the back end of the bench here. So Dougie Buckets is probably the second maybe, but for now I'm still taking Ingles and I'll keep risking that we find Ranch here.
Okay, I'm just going to rapid fire. I'm going to give you 5 names. If you want to pick 2, you don't have to. I mean, hell, you could just leave with only one used DVD. You don't have to, Lonzo Ball on a buyout. Let's say he gets bought out.
100%. I've been waiting for you to say
I'm in too.
Again, he has to be bought out. He's under contract. I don't know what's going on with the knees thing. I'm literally putting myself at risk that, like I just said, I need insurance behind Mike Conley, and now I'm going to go draft a guy who might have one meniscus. But I think a smart team will go find Lonzo Ball in the buyout market if he does get bought out by Chicago and just see what's left. Because even him at, we'll see what his health is, but even him diminished, I think, just as a skill that when he was good, he was really good. And if he's just mediocre, I think he might just be still good. So not to jump all over this and cut you off, but Lonzo Ball is like on my phone here. I would love for that guy to be on the roster.
And then let's go Taurean Prince, Robert Covington, never Google, Evan Fournier, and then Damian Lee, who's coming off an injury season, a knee injury, Warriors and Suns, 3-point shooter.
Obviously, Taurean Prince has a history here. I wonder if he would be okay. Again, this sounds so weird, but as a Wolves fan listening to this, would you rather give minutes to Terrence Shannon or maybe see what Josh Minott can do in year 3 or even Leonard Miller or Taurean Prince? I think Taurean Prince, if he doesn't play, might be a little difficult in the locker room. I'm big on that. I just think a good locker room translates to the court. So I'm out on that. I think Covington would be awesome.
Also a history here.
History here. I remember when he got traded away, but then he came back and sat in the media section one night with Gerson Rosas, and he did love his time here. He's really close with Carl. And I just think he has a little more juice. He's also had some injury history too. So I would add him to the Joe Ingles. Yep, I'm in on him. I'm in on Lonzo. And then Evan Fournier is a tough one. I think he probably thinks he's better than he is. Obviously, he has a history with Rudy Gobert. They're on the French national team together this year. But a little more of a guard again. And not a lot of playmaking skills, not a lot of, backup point guard skills. So I'm out on him. And then Damian Lee's fun. I just think he's a fun player. I've always liked him a little more than your average. He is a minimum contract type player. But what we're kind of doing in this exercise now is finding out that this team has a lot of depth at the big spots. I mean, we'll see what Leonard Miller can do in year 2. Josh Minott, they re-signed Luka Garza to a real NBA contract. But they've added a lot of juice, a lot of speed. I think Tim Connelly wants to play faster. I think Finch will play faster this next season. But there, to me, is a leadership element that will go away if Kyle were to leave. He was big in that locker room. And then there was just Swiss Army knife role of guys that can do multiple things. It's harder to find those when you're paying minimum contracts, but that's also what the CBA is going to force. There's going to be guys that take minimums. You're like, holy hell, why did Monty Morris, who's still in his 20s, take a minimum on the second day of free agency? So
that's crazy. Yeah.
Give me Joe Ingles. I'm with you. Number 1, it would have been cool to get Batum. Robert Covington would fill a role. And then, again,
Lonzo.
My dad actually just tore his meniscus golfing. He fell in a bunker, but 2 weeks later
was he wearing those big baller brand golf shoes? Those
pretty much, yeah. He
legs.
got his cleat stuck in the sand, so I don't know if he chipped out. But 1 meniscus, 0 meniscus, I don't care. Give me Lonzo Ball. It's just a low risk, super high reward type flyer.
Okay, yeah. Let us know in the YouTube comments section. In or out on Lonzo Ball. Let's bring our guy, producer extraordinaire Ross Brendel, in here for a random Wolf of the Week. There he is.
What's up, buddy?
So we have 5 minutes left here. We want to respect Kyle's schedule. And Ross is going to throw out a series of clues. We can shout out answers whenever we think we know. If one of us hits a third strike, then the other one wins automatically. Kyle has 15 wins all time. I have 7. Keita Bates Diop was the last one. And then Mike James, Costa Kufos, Jared Bayless, and Naz Reid. The last handful of random Wolves of the Week.
I just want to let you boys know, if you thought Keita Bates Diop was random, this can also kind of be a hint. This is a poll, man. I'd be shocked if either one of you guys get this. I'm just throwing that out there.
Season 3, Flagrant House. Let's go.
Wow, this is a deep poll.
Can we start with initials, maybe, to make it easy? All right, here we go.
That's how we're going to end. I got a feeling that's how we're going to end. Do you want to give the rules, Phil? I think you kind of did, right?
I just did. Yeah. Thanks for listening, Ross. Appreciate you.
It's a new season for all of us. Don't forget heat check after the first one, by the way, boys. Don't forget that part. Yeah. All right. This random Wolf of the Week was a NBA second round draft pick.
Okay.
This random Wolf of the Week, a second round pick in the NBA. Anybody want to go?
Kyle?
Alan Crabb.
It is not Alan Crabb.
Lauren Woods.
It is not Lauren Woods. Good guess, though.
All right. Those guesses don't count. Those are heat check guesses.
This random Wolf of the Week attended college at Baylor University. A Baylor college basketball player.
Would Ross pull a fast one?
That's what I was wondering, too. Like, is it?
I mean, he wasn't. He wasn't. There's a good chance he wasn't listening to the last part as he was putting together Random Wolf of the Week.
No, actually, fun fact: this one's been put together since I think about halfway through the Denver playoff series, and we're just now getting to it. So it's been gathering dust.
A rebound is where you reach up with two hands, and you grab the ball. And you
Okay,
bring it in.
Torian. This Random Wolf of the Week spent the bulk of his career with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
We need to know what bulk could be. Any number of different.
Yeah, like 13 games.
Yeah.
Bulk of his career with the Wolves, played college ball at Baylor, NBA second-round draft pick. This Random Wolf of the Week appeared in more than 400 NBA games.
Wow. Okay, that's a bulk. That's bulk.
This Random Wolf of the Week was drafted in 1988. Drafted in 1988.
Well, okay then.
This Random Wolf of the Week was a NBA champion in 1989.
Oh, Ross. I'm just going to guess it because I know he went there, but the time. It's not John Lucas, is it?
It is not John Lucas.
All right, so it's one strike for Kyle.
This is old. I'm in trouble.
I don't even know if Phil will get this. He needs to channel young Phil Mackey.
Boy, my first ever Wolves game was 1993, like at Target Center.
Well, this Random
I
Wolf
may
of
have
the
watched
Week.
this player.
This Random Wolf of the Week first played for the Minnesota Timberwolves in 1992.
Wow, but the bulk of his career. So he was okay. Well,
I'll give you a hint on that. In this definition, bulk may just be by seasons and years.
okay.
Okay?
Oh, okay.
This Random Wolf of the Week played guard in the National Basketball Association.
I still think it's John Lucas.
Did you guess it again?
This one is very difficult. I told AJ Fredrickson before we recorded this, I have a theory that maybe 5 to 10% of people will know who this is when we get there. This Random Wolf of the Week only appeared in 35 games in his final 4 years with the Wolves.
Gosh. Okay.
Oh my god.
So which means he played a lot of years with the Wolves and
But didn't play.
He played with KG. He played with KG.
This Random Wolf of the Week was named to the All-NBA Defensive Second Team in 1992. So he did start his career off pretty well for your Minnesota Timberwolves.
This is why I came back to Flagrant Howls, just for this exercise.
Are you anywhere in the realm? Either
no.
one of you? Any idea?
Initials might not even do it at this point.
If you tell me his name, I wouldn't get it right now.
This Random Wolf of the Week was traded. How about this? Traded to Minnesota from the Pacers prior to the 1992 season.
So he might have been in the Sam Mitchell trade, sending Chuck. Was it Chuck Person?
Well, I'll tell you what, Phil. Why don't I move on to the next clue and tell you this Random Wolf of the Week was traded with Chuck Person to the Wolves for Sam Mitchell and Pooh Richardson.
Okay, dude, I'm on it. I'm on it right now.
I mean, this is.
I think I know.
He could show up on camera and I probably wouldn't know him.
He'll be joining us from Australia. No, I'm just
Kyle,
kidding.
do you legitimately have to leave right now? Are you
No,
okay?
this is more important. I'll quit my job. I need to know.
This is more important. This Random Wolf of the Week finished his career playing in just 2 games for the Toronto Raptors in 1999.
It's a nice little career for this guy.
Ross is just having us pick grains of sand right now.
Yeah.
This is where I start
to... Give us one initial.
M.
Marlon Maxey.
Is that a guess?
That was a real guess.
It is not Marlon Maxey.
Is that even a guy? Wasn't there a Marlon Maxey?
There is a Marlon Maxey of some sorts, right? This random wolf of the week shares a last name with 5 other rostered Minnesota Timberwolves.
Like a last name?
Last name, yep. Shares a last name.
Marlon Maxey was a Timberwolves player.
There have been other Timberwolves with this last name. I think Phil feels like, oh, maybe not. This random wolf of the week should not be confused with Michael Carter Williams, even though they share 2/3 of the same name.
Michael Williams.
That is correct, Phil Mackey. Michael Williams.
Okay. All right. What happened while I was gone in June?
Let's go, dude.
That was a clue. Oh my god.
That one is so random. I apologize,
Michael Williams. It's an automatic generator. It's AI. We choose these players by
the
AI.
algorithm spits out a name and I go with it. But I pulled this one, and I want you guys to know this is probably now a month and a half ago. This one came up, and I literally out loud said, "Oh man."
Michael Williams. Let's go.
I can't express enough how that last clue threw me for an absolute mental bender. I was like, what are you talking about? I was like,
I'll read it one more time.
Yeah, say it again.
Carter Michael. No, damn it.
This random wolf of the week should not be confused with Michael Carter Williams, even though they share 2/3 of the same name.
Beautiful.
Number 24, Michael Williams. You're right. Back in
the random wolf of the week.
Jerseys.
Truly random today.
I think if I remember correctly, he was second team, if the years are right. He was second team all defensive NBA while playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yeah. He got off to a great start with the Wolves, and then injuries derailed him.
Yeah, as happens.
No fun Wikipedia facts too. I like to make sure now that our random wolves of the week aren't in any legal issues. Just trying to cover all our bases. So maybe Michael Williams, you're safe. Come on the pod.
All right, Roscoe, great work on the random wolf of the week.
Good job, Ross.
That's Flagrant Howls for today. He's Kyle. He's back. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.